Andy Burnham's poll ratings have fallen sharply as the Makerfield by-election is just 1 day away. In April, he enjoyed a positive rating, something extremely rare for politicians. But over the last few months, and especially in June, he has had a dramatic shift, with 41% having an unfavourable opinion compared to 30% who like him. That's going from a net +4 to -11. Of course, increased scrutiny and attacks from the right-wing media will have an effect. But is that the only reason? Well, another poll conducted by Ipsos showed that half of voters think Burnham is continuity Keir Starmer. A poll by Ipsos conducted between June the 5th and 9th found that 25% believe Mr. Burnham would be better in Downing Street than Sir Keir, who was preferred by 12%. However, 50% said there would be no difference or that neither would make a better Prime Minister, up 11 percentage points on the previous month. Due to recent statements from Andy Burnham, it's not hard to see why people think he will be the same as Starmer. Burnham admitted that he would keep the government's fiscal rules, and he backs Shabana Mahmood's immigration policy. He also said he would cut welfare to increase defence spending. He's also being dubbed Andy Boomer for this. I'll keep the triple lock and give pensioners a tax cut. Nothing for younger people, right? You're pandering to older people. I mean, I'm not saying you can't try and appeal to older people, but for decades, we've literally had policies set in a gerontocracy, I would say, and a reform of hoovered up all the older people. What about the young people, Andy? It's no difference. Lewis, what difference is there between Burnham and Starmer? And do you think the recent polling has shown that reform may actually win Makerfield?
I think the difference is just, vibes. It's just vibes and energy, which, by the way, isn't actually a bad thing. I think vibes and energy could have actually made the Labour Party a bit more successful than they've been. Despite all the criticisms, a lot of it does come down to vibes, energy, emotion, who can tell the best story, who can do the best speech, which Andy can do that. But ultimately, he's just going for the centrist approach again. Like, yeah, you can talk about, what he wants to do with, water and utilities and other things like this. But again, that's a long-term plan. It's obviously going to take a lot of money to do. But other than that, he's just basically going for that kind of centrist approach, which is he's just trying to appeal to almost everyone and no one at the same time. You say you're going to back the pensioners and then you piss off the young people, but then you're going to, bring utilities back into public ownership, which might, make the lefties across all age groups happy. But you end up just upsetting multiple people. I think what's interesting, I still, I haven't deeply dove into the makeup and the demographics of Makerfield. I'm almost fed up of by-elections or being told that a by-election is it's a once in a century historically changing by-election. But I still almost think it's kind of sad that, the poll that I looked at today, which one did you just have up a second ago? Was it the YouGov one?
It depends which one you're talking about.
So the YouGov one that I looked at today put reform and restore together at 46. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that, we have had for this
that was a shared poll by Reform in Reform branding. So I don't know if it's anyway, yeah. I don't know if it's a selected poll, but
yeah, they're all showing a little bit different. No, this was one for Makerfield. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that we have obviously seen everything from Farage over the last few months, all of his donations, all of his potential scandals that are continuing and incoming, him avoiding scrutiny. We've got this candidate who, Matt Goodwin obviously has been in the public image for much longer, and there was some stuff to scrutinize him on, but because he has a public image, he's still been somewhat careful with his words over the years, even though you can scrutinize him. The candidate there, he has said some of the most insane and horrific things, and somehow he's still polling in around 40%. I feel like, again, that almost shows how badly Labour are doing, or even obviously more so Andy in a way. You think that for a Manchester seat, which yes, again, does have different makeup, it's slightly more conservative, you would think he'd be absolutely walking the park with this one, but he's not. Which again is, I think it was The Independent who basically did some analysis today to basically show it's tactical voting, which could really send him over the line at possibly 5%, 5 points ahead of the, two joint right-wing parties. I'm not even including the Tories in this. They're irrelevant into the analysis of what I'm trying to do here, is that you've got Restore Britain who are, full of insane extremists. And then you've got Reform with Mr., I want to smell or lick Carol Vorderman's arsehole comments and everything else that he said about, women and everything else that you could just drag up. And they're still getting like he's still getting 40 to 41%. I think that's actually quite telling of like where Andy actually is. You know, his popularity came about more so in the modern era, from essentially being the guy who was in opposition to the government during COVID, right? That was kind of his rise. He's obviously had some extra fame from being what is be considered a successful mayor in Greater Manchester, and it's almost easier in that way. I remember Andy Street, who was West Midlands mayor, I think. You know, he was happy to attack the Conservatives, and he seemed like actually an all right kind of guy for a Tory. So he was able to kind of like cross the divide. Lots of other mayors have been able to attack the government and be in opposition to them because they're a mayor. But how is he going to perform if he does become a prime minister, if he does become even an MP? I can't imagine him going for the full, you know, further to the left approach. I imagine him just being trapped in the same position that many politicians find themselves trapped in, where they just end up trying pleasing everybody and then pleasing no one, which was in theory what was the downfall of Cameron, which led to Brexit, right? He was trying to keep the right happy of his party, he's trying to keep the left happy of his party. And obviously the same with Starmer. He posed as a lefty, went to the centre, and look how hated he is. It seems like he could just simply make the same mistakes as what Starmer and other people have done when they're leading a party.
I think you make a good point about being mayor. There's a level of protection, right, where you can criticise the government. Like Andy Burnham being a Labour MP, you can't really do that because Keir Starmer and his top team, and by the way, Morgan McSweeney's back in the fold, they can just remove the whip if they want to. There is a level of protection there. And in the popularity of Andy, again, you're right, it's a recent thing because, and I find this very strange, there are some people on the left who are really like getting behind Andy. And so remember, Andy Burnham was the continuity leadership candidate in 2015. You know, he was seen as the soft left candidate, and then Jeremy Corbyn came along, and everyone saw Andy Burnham as a Blairite, LFI, PFI, and Jeremy Corbyn was the one who stood out. Now today, you've got people like, you know, I'm excited about Burnham. What's also interesting is in British politics, it's different to America, that British politics, you don't have to be liked. It sounds very odd, right? You're asking for people's votes, but you don't need to be personally liked. I mean, Reform are the most popular party in terms of polling, yet Nigel Farage is extremely unpopular. Like, he's not that far off Keir Starmer's poll ratings. He is not liked. And that's the strange thing, right? You would assume that a party leader needs to be popular for the party to be popular, and that's not the case. People will point to Zach Polanski, and his poll ratings have really plummeted, obviously due to a lot of political attacks. But actually, I mean, recent polls have shown that the Greens are hanging on despite this potential move from Andy Burnham. I mean, they've gone up a point in YouGov on 15%. They've not completely collapsed because people look at political parties. So you could say, well, how does Reform hold up their vote with someone like Rob Kenyon? And again, I think people don't pay too much attention to their candidate, if I'm completely honest. I mean, look at Restore, for example. Restore, who, at the end of the day, maybe their polling is fabricated. Maybe they only get 3%. But let's say they get their 7%. That is based on purely Rupert Lowe. No one knows who the local candidate is. Like, at least someone can go, Andy Burnham's Labour, Robert Kenyon's Reform. Even people go, yeah, that's Sarah Wakefield's, who's Green. Might point to her question time performance, right? But no one knows who the Restore candidate is. In fact, like, the Restore party won't allow her to do interviews, which is really, really strange. Okay. Now, the strange thing here, though, is that Andy Burnham is running a local campaign. He's not running a party campaign. Like, we saw the literature, it's nothing to do with Labour. So whilst I think Reform is doing it's a national thing, the appeal was just for Nigel Farage, not many people know Robert Kenyon, and even when they do, many Reform supporters actually agree that he's a bad candidate. Like, we've spoken to, like, people close to Reform who are like, yeah, he's not the best candidate in the world. Now, Andy Burnham, of course, he's more popular in the party, you would think. So it's obviously all about being about his face. But now it could be a mistake because, as we've seen, his personal poll ratings might not be so good. But they don't really have a choice, right? Because they can't then start saying, oh, no, vote for the Labour Party, because you'd argue that they're far less popular than Andy Burnham.
I also saw, I think it was either today or yesterday, like internal Labour membership voting saying that I think it was like 56% of Labour members want, Starmer to step down, or start the process of it. And I was thinking that's not as much as I thought it would be. And like
Mm.
historically, Labour Party members are always more kind of forgiving, and leaders tend to be more popular within the membership. But I kind of thought it would be higher, because when you think about the possibility of, let's just say Starmer goes ahead and does a leadership contest, which I don't think he'll do, but let's just pretend he does. You'd have at least obviously Wes Alcans. I've literally
Al
forgotten.
Kearns, yeah, who's on
Kearns, thank you.
0%.
I'm forgetting people's names today. Al Kearns, Andy Burnham, and obviously Starmer, and who knows who else. So how are those votes going to split? Because I genuinely thought Starmer would be at least maybe in the 60s, but 56, 57. It will be interesting to see exactly what happens and how it's done, because I've seen a lot of feedback from the people who do the polling, and sitting down doing the groups and stuff like that with people, that many people are seeing Andy Burnham as somewhat opportunistic here. Like obviously, if you're into politics, we know exactly what this is. So there's no perception of what our mind can change to be, right? But in this case, people are seeing Andy as a guy that they maybe they might like a little bit, and then they're seeing him take this opportunity, which could just make him seem like not like a backstabbing politician, but a bit more of a career guy, a guy who's just taking an opportunity because it's been thrown in front of him. It'll be interesting to see like how that is perceived if he does become get into the party and has to run for leader, because he is going to have to turn into a politician with collective responsibility, and he's going to be doing all the usual politician lines. Can he keep up? He has got a charm to him. He's a decent speaker. He can actually appeal to probably working class people, but can he keep up that kind of like Andy Burnham charm that he's developed over the last few years as a prime minister, when he's bound by collective responsibility, by having every single problem thrown at him? But I will say this: when Keir came in and the Labour Party came in, everybody suddenly magically forgot about 14 years of Tory rule almost.
People have short memories, don't they? I mean, look at the Conservative vote. I mean, Kemi Badenoch, she's now, their party's polling second. But it just shows that people do have very short memories in politics. They're forgetting, because it's almost, in a way, a sense of nostalgia. And you would think, why would you have nostalgia in the austerity period? But I feel like things feel like they're going in the wrong direction. So I guess everyone's always going to look in the past, right? In terms of like, I'm somewhat surprised with you in terms of how, okay, Keir Starmer's not popular with the membership, but he still would command a sizable amount of votes if there was a second contest. I do wonder that, first of all, we don't really know the Labour membership figures anymore. They don't publish it. It's very likely that the Green Party now have more members. And you got to think all the lefties and maybe even like soft left people have been either kicked out of the party or left. So the people that are left in the Labour Party aren't that left wing. I also think there's maybe an element of the sunk cost fallacy. People are like, look, we voted for Keir Starmer as leader. It's only been 18 months. We're sick of elections. We're sick of leadership elections. Let's just get on with it. So that could also be it too. But you are right. I'm a bit surprised. I thought it would have been, 90% of people want Starmer gone.